Hello and welcome to This Is a Thing, the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs who started unusual businesses and found unexpected success. On today's podcast, we're talking to Robert Cirjak. Robert started Wibit Sports, the world's leader in floating water parks. And yes, you heard that right, floating water parks. I want to take a minute and let that just sink in, how incredibly cool that is. I will warn you that I'm a very serious fangirl of Robert's and of Wibit's, so if you are watching this on video, you might just see me explode into 1,000 pieces on the screen. Welcome to the world of the weird and the wonderful. Welcome to This Is a Thing. When I met you in person for the first time at the amusement park convention in Orlando, I remember telling you, Robert, I am Wibit's biggest fan. You're meeting her right now, number one. And I remember you said to me, I'm not so sure I know someone who has a Wibit tattoo. Is this right?
This is true.
This is true.
There is a person with a Wibit tattoo, and if needed, I could provide the proof of this as well.
You started a business that just inspires so much passion and excitement in me and thousands of other people around the world. You didn't start there. So I want to go back and I want to talk about that journey. But first, I realized that it's hard to describe what Wibit really is in an audio format. It's so visual. I love just showing people what it is. I alternatively have told people as I talk about it nonstop, picture a bounce house on water, picture an inflatable water park on the lake. And sometimes I'll just say, picture the most fun you've ever had in your life, multiply that times 1,000 and put it on water. So what is, and that's my favorite description, the most accurate, if you ask me. What's your description for you can't see it?
Think of a floating playground on the water.
Before you started Wibit, you were a professional soccer player. And I think that you might have had the two jobs that are probably the most coveted by every kid in the world. You were a professional athlete and you run a playground, right? What kid does not want to have those two jobs? So what did you want to be when you grew up? If you take yourself back to your 10-year-old self, maybe.
Sure, I had a couple of goals, and very early, I actually have Croatian roots. So I always had an affinity for Croatia to do something back there on the coast. Playing professional soccer was a big dream. But before that, I also wanted to get an education. So I actually have a bachelor's of science in kinesiology. But I guess soccer was always one of those dreams.
Yeah. And what was the path from the dream of wanting to be in soccer to being a professional player?
Yeah, so here's kind of how it started. So I just graduated and I'm just starting in this new, let's call it private fitness and sports really orientated training and stuff like that. And about a month later, my brother gets engaged with a person from Germany. So I tell my boss, I'm like, look, I got to go for this wedding. I'm the best man. And I leave basically everything behind. And during that time in the wedding, I meet a person who meets another person who gets me a tryout for a soccer team. I played at a high level from a university and also in Canada. And they said, if you want to stay, we'll give you a 1-year contract and you can play on the team. So it was a pretty bold move. I knew 2 words of German, thank you and Beckenbauer. That's kind of all I basically knew. And I was kind of thrown into this whole new world. So everything kind of happened by chance.
Oh, and I'm imagining, I know the soccer players of the Messis and Ronaldos of the world and the amazing lifestyles that is. I imagine that it's different when you're just starting out in a league. What is that really like to be playing that first year for you?
Yeah, well, the thing was this, you have to imagine, taking an NFL football player and trying to put him someplace in Africa. They've never seen that sport. They've never heard that. And me coming from Canada, from Vancouver, everybody was asking, don't you guys play ice hockey there? And you play soccer? And it was kind of not really the norm. But I had that European background from Croatia. So yes, it was pretty exciting. I'm not on that level, of course, with those players that you just mentioned. For me, it was just that challenge. How far could I get? And ironically, once you get there, I kind of wasn't really, let's say, satisfied with that whole business side. I would have played for free. It was your passion. You just loved it. And then when I came here, it was like I saw that business side, and that was kind of like a really wake-up call when it came to that sports, let's say, professionalism that you mentioned.
Interesting. What does that mean? What turned you off from it? And I'm really thinking about how hard it is to let go of a dream, right? Something you've wanted to do since you're a kid. What made you a little bit disillusioned?
So here's an example. So if you're on a team and the team wins, you get what's called a premium. Let's say you get $100. Now, if you get substituted, you get 75% of that. If you don't get substituted, you get only 50%. So there was a lot of players jockeying to see who's the coach going to put in. Even if it's for a minute or two, you get a premium. And to me, it was those little things like that I wasn't really crazy about. And I only played for 1 year. I had some injuries. And also back then, being a non-European, there were different laws for allowing non-Europeans to play also, which have now changed since then. So anyways, I achieved my goal of really wanting to feel what it was like to be a professional.
It sounds like there were some things that made you feel like, I don't want to stay in this. Glad I tried it. Glad I'm here, but it's time for something else. And I know you've said in previous interviews that, the origin story of Wibit, you saw a picture of a trampoline on the water and you said, I got to get into this. And when I hear that story, I think, man, I'm inspired by ideas all the time. I'm constantly seeing things that are exciting. I'm sure you are too. Why was this the thing that you said, not only do I think this is exciting, but I'm actually going to do something about it?
So it happened on a flight back from Vancouver to Frankfurt. And just I was stepping out and I picked up this water sports magazine, and it had something to do with my affinity for Croatia. I have family there who run a charter business, and I was looking for something in the water sports area. And I come across this picture of this floating water trampoline. The first one was invented in Hawaii. A father wanted to build a trampoline for his kids, had some wooden panels, nails inside there, and very primitive. So I really thought, how cool is this? So I called the company, Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, and the guy goes, where are you calling from? And I'm like, Germany. And he's like, well, what state's that in? And I'm like, no, Germany, like, Europe and Berlin and Autobahn. And the guy hung up on me. 15 seconds go by and it's like, should I call the guy back or should I just forget it? So fortunately, I called the guy back and I explained, hang on here. I'm in Germany. I saw your product. So I was the first person to call them outside of the state of Missouri. This thing had just launched. So that's kind of how I stumbled across that product and this idea.
You said that one of the things that was interesting to you is that you wanted to do something on water. Your family had this charter business in Croatia. Tell me more about kind of your criteria of what you were looking for in this next step post-soccer.
It was basically just a paycheck. I mean, it was basically, okay, what can I now do? And, I wanted to do something also in my field of kinesiology. And I was just doing some stuff on the side with a physio here locally in Germany, just to be able to say, okay, that's my real profession. And once I eventually get back to North America, I can say I did a little work in my field. So it was more, what can I do to stay on this continent? And of course, having an affinity with water sports had some synergy with Croatia.
You started out thinking that you were going to partner with this company. And we all know the end of the story is you started your own company instead. Why did you make that change?
Because of the metric system. That was the main reason. Working with this company in the US, we told them, look, we need to have things in French, Italian, and Spanish, and all these European languages. And they were like, well, can't these guys speak English? Then we had the issue, of pounds, inches, square feet, those things don't exist in Europe. So it just didn't work because of the natural differences between the two continents. And then we had things like, this German safety standard that they were looking at as well, which didn't exist in North America. So it was kind of because of that, we realized if this is going to be successful, we need to target and do something specifically within this European market.
What was your earliest vision of what Wibit could be? What was the day one vision of Wibit?
So it was kind of like when I realized how much fun people have playing on these water products. Like you maybe remember the pool noodle? Mm-hmm. So I remember going to our local pool here and people were fighting for this funny foam noodle. And once they got it, they'd sit on it, they'd wrap it around their waist, their neck, and they'd hit each other. And I also kind of thought, you know what? What about that water trampoline? And what if that expanded into an add-on like a slide, a climbing structure or a swing? And that's maybe the real innovation that we did. it wasn't just creating, these floating playgrounds. It was taking movements, swinging, climbing, jumping, crawling, and we actually took that and changed the playing field. So doing that in the water, that's something that's never been done before. We kind of, took falling out of the equation and we put it back into the equation. So that kind of led to this whole realization of, holy smokes, look how much fun people will have if we put something in the water and they can play on it.
And I imagine that you didn't just on day one all of a sudden have this enormous playground in the water. I imagine that there was a starting point that was smaller than that. And what was that starting point for you?
I call that actually the Xerox moment. So we're at our manufacturing plant and we saw one of those jumping castles that you can imagine it when you think about inflatables. And this thing was really long. It was really bulky. And I was looking at this and I asked our technician, I said, could you ever slice that up and make that into smaller pieces? And that kind of created what we call modularity for our products. And then we kind of envisioned having this modular product that could connect to any other product. So from there, we went to 1 or 2 or 3 products to creating a dozen. And then it was like from these dozen pieces, the amount of combinations, it was just endless. Modularity kind of sparked the revolution for us to be able to say, now it's not just 1 or 2 pieces or even a track. Now it can be a whole park interconnected on the water.
Is there anything as you look back that you think would surprise yourself about what Wibit has become versus what you envisioned it would be on day one when you had this idea?
It's probably the demographics. We're in over 100 countries. Play it's universal. And, seeing that we have people playing on our products from age 4 to 94. So I think what kind of surprised me over the years is just, from Mongolia to Alaska, everywhere on the planet, people just have an affinity to play on the water.
I believe it. I aspire to be a 94-year-old Wibit athlete or person enjoying Wibit. So that's a good gauntlet thrown. I will be in my 90s and enjoying your product. So when you first had this idea, did you tiptoe into it? Did you immediately say, I'm all in, my life savings is in this? Tell us about how you kind of tested and got to that moment when you decided this was your 100% effort idea you were going to spend the next part of your career on.
So basically, I kind of burned all my boats when I landed. Okay. That's kind of the mentality. You're all in from the very beginning. And I was fortunate. I have a German partner. His name is Roman Rademacher. And he was a German-speaking person, had all those qualities, the discipline, the banking background. So, we both kind of brought something to the table that maybe was missing from each of us. But we were basically pretty much all in, which meant, let's see how long we can do this until something better comes along.
What was the moment when you stopped looking for something better to come along?
I think kind of when you could start to choose. When you're hungry, you'll kind of eat anything. And you maybe get to a point where you can pick and choose and say, okay, look, I want to work with these people. I don't want to work with these people. So that kind of made things very, for us, let's say, different compared to the early years. What was really interesting for us was seeing how our clients changed. They became they became sophisticated, big resort groups, hotel groups. Where in the early days, we were working with people who we coined pirates. A pirate is that beach operator. He had no business card, no phone, no company, but somehow they had that concession on the beach. And we're talking about rentals like pedal boats and jet skis, and even, those launchers that you'd rent on the beach. So that pirate was our main customer very early.
Was there a day or a moment when you said to yourselves and you said to your partner, my gosh, this is really working. We did it.
It's a good question. And honestly, that probably came in 2018. We were acquired by a private equity company. It's the last thing that we wanted to do. And, one of the people actually in that group asked me, he goes, Robert, why do you want to do this? And for us, it was always about playing in the Champions League. coming back from that sports background, we were playing maybe in the second division, and now having the resources, the networking to be able to really play in that higher league. That's kind of for us what it was all about, to see how high can we take this.
Was there a particular goal that you were looking to achieve that you were excited about taking PE Capital on to help you do?
I think it was more, let's say, using that network to go into different fields such as merchandising, taking advantage of the brand, running and operating maybe even our own locations. So it's just really expansion into new demographics where we would have maybe got there, but it would have taken a lot longer.
And I know as part of that investment, you decided to hire a CEO. You stepped into a different role in the company.
Right.
Tell me about how that feels. How does that feel for your identity?
I mean, honestly, it feels strange, when you've done something as long as I have, and it's your passion, and it's your baby, and it's your child, and it always will be. But there comes a time where you think, you know what, it might be the right thing to do. And, with all the things changing, not just with IT and stuff, and having somebody come in, have new ideas. So you need to change. And if you don't adapt, and that's sometimes hard when you've been doing things or accustomed to doing things, in a similar way.
And what has this allowed you to focus on personally since that investment and bringing on a CEO? What are you spending your time on?
Gives me a chance to think. Honestly, it's really a time where you can reflect and you can make decisions and have that opportunity to think about things once, twice, even 3 times, where before you're more used to doing things on the fly. When I travel now, it's not just seeing a trade show or a hotel or an airport. Now I get a chance also to spend more time with the people I'm visiting and to kind of get more in-depth feedback and where this thing could go, and always trying to think, what's the next big thing around the corner?
Man, that sounds fun. That's the first reaction I have to you saying that. It sounds like taking a deep breath and enjoying. And it's really a testament to how much you love what you do, that with some time cleared up for yourself, you're using it to engage more with your customers. You're using it to think about more ideas. That I can't wait to see what you do next. Tell me about, on your best days, what you love about your job.
It's definitely stories. I'll get a phone call from a so-called pirate who's a beach operator, and he tells me the story how, there was this young woman. She came to the park, and as she was exiting, she cut her foot on a rock coming out of the ocean. So he took a bandage and he bandaged her up, and she was very grateful. And she came back 30 minutes later and gave him a coffee as a thank you. Well, 3 months later, they get engaged, and I'm invited to the wedding. So,
oh my goodness, that's incredible.
Hearing stories like that, where our products have brought people together, that's a pretty cool thing.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, on the flip side, I imagine it's not every day you're talking people who are getting married on a Wibit, let's say. Yeah. And it might seem very glamorous from the outside. Oh man, you're in the industry of fun. I'm sure every day is just joy and excitement and laughter. What's the real talk? What is the part that people outside of this industry might not see that is just getting business done that might not be as glamorous or fun, but is necessary?
What probably hurts is when you spend maybe a year developing a new product or a new concept. You do all this engineering, this technical, you get the safety standards, the German TUV, and then you're going to launch it to the market. And then a few weeks later, a staff member will come in and say, hey, Robert, our product's been knocked off, or there's a counterfeit product, or, these guys are infringing. And then, of course, we have to go through that process of protecting what's rightfully ours. We do that for 2 reasons. It's the right thing to do, and also to protect the people who are distributing our products. We have at Wibit over 275 patents and trademarks.
Wow.
So it's quite a bit. But I guess, back to your question, it's that hassle of having to now go through that process again and again and again and again. So we actually won an award in Germany as being the second most infringement on one of our products. It's kind of like an award you don't want to win, right?
Right.
So we came in second on this. So that's probably been a tough thing to deal with over the years.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And you're not alone. I'm thinking of, I interviewed Randy Hetrick, who started a company called TRX, if you're familiar in the fitness space.
Sure.
And he had a very similar answer, that was one of the more frustrating things of the business is IP protection, but it's necessary so that you can succeed. So interesting how that spans industries.
Yeah.
Lightning round of questions to finish us up. I am building my bucket list of Wibits to go to around the world. Which is the one that I should put at the top of my bucket list?
So there's one in Croatia that's called Zlatni Rat. It's voted top 10 beaches actually in the world. It's basically called the Golden Horn in Croatia, and it has simply one of the most amazing water parks anywhere in the world. So that's probably on my list, I would say number one. You mentioned Dubai before, super exciting. Just to be in Dubai and stuff in that park is actually pretty amazing as well. So
done. All right, it's on the go. And I know you love to play, you love to be outside. When you're not on a Wibit, where are you playing?
Just doing anything revolving around fitness and health and going for walks. Germany, I think, actually hiking is probably the most popular sport in Germany, hiking. So we do quite a bit of hiking as well. So
amazing. And I have to add to your list, going to Bern and floating down the river. You are absolutely going to love it. It blew my mind. I could not believe that you literally in the middle of the city just jump into the river and just found. Can't wait for you to go and tell me about
health.
My last question for you is, I wanted to talk to you because to me, you have the ultimate business that makes me say, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is a thing. I cannot believe that there is an entrepreneur who's so smart and so amazing. They started a business doing, in what my opinion, is the absolute coolest thing in the world. And they built a life doing that. So my question for you is, who is that person for you? What is an example of an entrepreneur that you look at and say, wow, they started something weird, wonderful, and I love it.
Let me maybe set this up. So we coined a term called amphibianization, which is taking something from the land to the water. So let's say, for example, you have amphibian airplanes, you have amphibian animals. So I'm a real big fan, of changing the playing field. Everybody talks about being a game changer. I like to use the word field changer. So there's a company from Chile called Crystal Lagoons, and they basically took a body of water, and now they can build this in any urban environment. So think about this. You can basically take a lagoon and put it in a country like Saudi Arabia, where that was never possible. And what I really am passionate about is, okay, now when you have this body of water there, what are all the cool things that you can do? Not just, let's say, playing on top of the water, but, swimming and training and all these other cool things. So that for me is a great example of what a cool thing, bringing water to anywhere in the world that's urban. So again, Crystal Lagoons from Chile. I think those guys are simply amazing.
What an amazing example. I mean, that sounds almost biblical. They're creating water where there is none. I can't imagine something cooler than that, because then it allows a Wibit to be there. So what a cool partnership between you and Crystal Lagoons. Are you doing something together?
Well, there's another company in Wisconsin Dells called Land of Natura, and they kind of created their own lagoon. And it's one of the, I would say, probably another top location to visit. It's actually the capital of water parks globally. And they did something really unique. It's a family-run business, and they created their own lagoon, which they claim is actually the cleanest water in the U.S. And they have a lot of Wibit attractions on their pond, their water.
Wow. Okay. So you add another one. I have Land of Natura, Dubai, and the park you said in Croatia. So I have a busy year ahead of Wibit travel. That was Robert Cirjak, co-founder of Wibit Sports. That's going to be a very hard episode to top. If you too want to plan a world trip to play on water, check out the show notes for links to Robert's personal bucket list recommendations. I hope to see you out there.